What can be said about Gone with the Wind that hasn't been said loudly and repeatedly already? It is a classic, huge, epic monster of a film. From the opening titles, it roars into frame like a beast. It's one of the biggest movies ever made, both in scope and certainly in length, clocking in at nearly 3 hours and 45 minutes without the overture, intermission, and exit music. It included an iconic role by one of the all-time iconic leading men. It's infinitely quotable.
I don't know nothing about birthing babies.
As God is my witness, I'll never be hungry again. After all, tomorrow is another day.
It still lingers on the lips of film critics the world over, but none of this necessarily says it's good. I mean, size, iconic performances, quotability, and critical acclaim don't necessarily mean high quality, especially 80 years down the line. So, is the Civil War epic romance still worth a damn? Let's find out. This is the best picture from 1939, Gone with the Wind. The technical. In 1938, we had this. In 1939, we had this. This is especially impressive, considering the Technicolor process was relatively young, and we can all remember how quickly Hollywood adapted to other innovations just 10 years before.
Jimmy, say, listen, I've got the hottest song and the hottest in your life. Sure is with that song.
Yes, this movie is truly a beauty to behold, with vibrant colors, incredible scope, and truly magnificent framing, considering the size and weight of the cameras, only 7 of which were even in existence at the time. With Gone with the Wind being a highly anticipated film from the beginning of production, all 7 cameras were used at some point in the filming. And with scenes like the burning of Atlanta, the impressive vistas at Tara, and the general carnage of war, the fact they got all of this with these monsters is staggering. The music fits well too, with the score, written by Max Steiner, swelling to magnificent heights and punctuating the dramatic lows in a masterful way. The sets also capture the grand scope of Civil War-era Georgia, though writer Margaret Mitchell pictured both Tara and 12 Oaks as being far less grand than depicted in the film. Overall, the film is a technical marvel, even by today's standards. The writing. Gone with the Wind is based on the novel by the same name by Margaret Mitchell, her first and only novel published in her lifetime. I have not read the book, because if there's anything longer than the movie Gone with the Wind, it is the book Gone with the Wind. My copy clocks in at about 1,448 pages. By way of comparison, that is the entirety of The Sorcerer's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets, The Prisoner of Azkaban, and right up to the end of the first Triwizard Task, right about there, about halfway through The Goblet of Fire. That is a lot of book. It is not a quick read, and even back in the 1930s, when the movie was released, the movie was criticized for adhering too much to the source material. If you like the book, this is good news. If you're a fan of tight, no fat included, quick sits, this can be murder. Gone with the Wind feels every bit its epic length. Sure, there are parts that move faster than others, with the second half feeling far shorter than the first, but make no mistake, watching Gone with the Wind is an experience that feels as long or longer than it really is. It might be blasphemous for me, a lifelong movie fan, to say this, but there are parts of Gone with the Wind that are just a little bit boring. It's not all burning Atlanta and not giving a damn. There are long stretches of Scarlett not getting her way, or Rhett being a jerk, or Ashley being whatever Ashley is. The actors do what they can to make it a pleasant watch for the most part, but it's impossible to not have some serious low points. The acting. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the third and final Best Picture winner that Clark Gable has appeared in, and for the third and final time, he just plain didn't want to be here. He saw it as a woman's picture, and didn't want to do another movie that required him to dress up in period costumes. To his credit, though, he doesn't let it show. The character, stuck in a love triangle, battling for the affections of a fairly unpleasant woman, goes from smug to vulnerable to broken throughout the course of the movie. Despite being a legendary leading man of the silver screen, Clark Gable steps out of the limelight and allows the true star to shine. Yes, though Gable's Rhett Butler is generally the focal point of the film nowadays, with him delivering the most quotable and cathartic line in the film, if not all of film history.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
It's Vivien Leigh's Scarlett O'Hara who is the weight and force of the film. I only stop short of calling her a delight because, well, she's not supposed to be. She's spoiled, determined, and focused on getting exactly what she wants and needs. This does not make for a terribly appealing character for most of the movie, and, to Leigh's credit, she revels in it. In fact, in a lesser actress's hands, the urge to make her more likable would have ruined the character at the outset. Watching Rhett and Leslie Howard's Ashley Wilkes play off of that relentless bullishness is what makes the movie worth watching. I've heard Scarlett O'Hara described as an early example of a feminist character in Hollywood, and I'm really having a hard time arguing otherwise. Throughout the movie, she behaves in a way completely counter to how a woman would have been accepted to act at the time, marrying repeatedly, including for money and to drag her family out of poverty, running her own business, and ultimately pulling herself up by her bootstraps and refusing to take no for an answer. Margaret Mitchell said in an interview that Gone with the Wind was about those with gumption and those without it, and Scarlett has it by the barrelful. Throughout the movie, we see her lose nearly everything she has, and it doesn't stop her. Vivien Leigh makes this character, unlikable though she undeniably is, a compelling, magnetic character that audiences for years have found themselves rooting for, even with everything stacked against her. On the supporting end, things get a little bit more polarizing. Hattie McDaniel is delightful in her Oscar-winning turn as Mammy. Unfortunately, she's so good, it's disappointing she isn't given more to do. Olivia de Havilland as Melanie does well, but isn't given much to do. She is sweet, endearing, and entirely there to move the plot along. This isn't de Havilland's fault. She does the best she possibly can with what's there. But, from stealing Scarlett's beloved, to forcing Scarlett to stay behind in Atlanta, to being called in to resolve Rhett's emotional issues, the character is hard to view as anything more than a convenient plot resolution. Again, de Havilland isn't to blame here. In fact, she manages the role with such grace that her plot-propellant nature isn't immediately noticeable while watching, a truly impressive feat. The real letdown here, though, is Leslie Howard as Melanie's husband and the object of Scarlett's affections, Ashley Wilkes. Howard, much like Clark Gable, did not want to be in this movie. Unlike Gable, however, Howard feels like he doesn't want to be here. For portions of the movie, he feels almost robotic. He sucks the life out of even the most dramatic, compelling scenes, which is really a shame for such a central character. Gone with the Wind is undeniably one of the most ambitious, biggest films ever to be made, even by today's standards. It is huge, it is grand, it is epic, it is pretty good. Yeah, I hate to come down on the middle on a landmark film like this, but it's not the best thing I've ever seen, and it's not the biggest hunk of trash I've ever seen. It is thoroughly above average, with some compelling characters and circumstances, but at well over 3.5 hours, I don't think there's a director alive or dead who could keep it from buckling under its own weight. A lesser director, with lesser actors reading lesser material, would have resulted in a lesser movie that would have crumbled altogether. That, in and of itself, is a triumph. The real tragedy here, though, is that it didn't have to be this long. Had the movie been cut down to about 3 hours, with all of the fluff removed, it would have only done this movie good. Ooh, Hitchcock.
I'd like to give it one more try, but my give a damn's busted.